KTN News, Nairobi.
All right, so now let's come back home and talk about securing the North region with the Deputy Governor of Wajir, Ahmed, who's with us here in studio. And DG, thank you for joining us tonight on Weekend Prime. First of all, let's talk about the current situation within the North region. How is it as we speak, security-wise?
Well, security-wise, the current situation is one thing, to the effect that these elements of militant elements, Al-Shabaab, have been cited in many parts of the region. They were also able to conduct many incidences where lives and limbs were lost, particularly in the 4 counties bordering Somalia of Lamu, Garissa, Wajir, and Mandera. So it is one thing to the effect that these incidents have been realized, but more importantly, and I think we cannot take chances. Remember that security is key in our lives, and as a region, we have gone through rough patches before. The Garissa incident of 2015, in which 148 lives were lost and many others injured, is still lingers in our mind. So we can't take any chances. We must assemble our efforts, synchronize and synergize our efforts in order to beat these elements. So it is one thing. It may not be as rough as it was in the first term of the devolution, 2013-17, but again, it could end there. So we were trying to preempt and come together, and of course, it's a devolved function. Security is a devolved function, but as county governments and other stakeholders, including the communities, we must come together and beat these people to smithereens.
All right. And that decision by the governments of Kenya and Somalia to reopen the borderline of these 2 countries, later on the decision was looked into. Was it well thought of?
I don't think, in my view, it was not well thought of, because this plays into the hands of these elements, militant elements. And it could as well be many other stakeholders, not necessarily these militant elements. They are also smugglers who don't want these borders to be regularized. So because this is their forte. But to the government, I believe this is playing into the hands of Al-Shabaab and other militant elements that do not want these borders to be regularized and custom border points to be made. Equally, what these militant elements capitalize on is the fact and narrative of marginalization in the area. So the moment you stop such development projects, you are literally playing into their hands. We have heard of the Siolo-Modogashi road also being temporarily halted as well. When we looked back and tried to investigate what caused that, we are told it was poachers that were chasing, wardens that were chasing poachers. Because of the sound of the gun, and people sensed insecurity, and the next day we hear it has been temporarily stopped. This equally plays into the hands of anti-development elements. And because of lack of such big projects, mega projects in the area, it's easy for these elements to make some space, find some space within the area. It's quite an expansive area. And at the moment also, we know that from the other end of Somalia, there's counter-insurgency operations from the other area pushing some of these elements into our area, into Kenya. Equally, when it rains, they find some safe haven because of enriched vegetation, which gives them some hideouts, opportunities for hideouts, and sources of water because it has rained. So the point is, we should not have delayed the border opening. We need to do it as fast as possible for many reasons. It provides business opportunities. It also provides revenue to the national government, and it regularizes operations between the 2 nations. We cannot stop doing business formal business because of these elements. We will be playing into their hands.
But then radicalization is something that has always been talked about anytime we're talking about securing the North region, that is Wajir, Garissa, Lamu, these areas that are prone to terror attacks. How is the county and how is the national and the county governments working with the locals to ensure that radicalization doesn't happen?
This is why, under the leadership of our governor, Wajir Governor Ahmed Abdullahi, we have had one of its kind meeting in Wajir some 2 weeks ago, assembling all the elected leaders, regional security heads, and some of the raft of proposals were made there. One of which was to robustly engage the communities and employ intelligence. We laud the position taken by the President William Ruto, for ruling out any extrajudicial killing and abductions. And we have encouraged the use of robust and entrenched intelligence collection to fight Al-Shabaab and other elements that are hell-bent on making sure that life does not progress. So we will continue engaging communities. We are also trying to ask the government to employ local resourceful people who have a lot of knowledge on the terrain, employs police reservists from the area. Remember in 2015 when the incident of Garissa happened, through public demand, we were able to, the government was able to have former Ambassador Saleh as regional commissioner then. And within a short span, he was able to push these elements to the periphery. So, locals are key to this fight. So, very important.
So, DG, from what you're explaining, bringing in the locals to help in the fight against not just terrorism, but the entire insecurity issue in the region. So does it mean that some of these people who are engaging in terror activities or insecurity, in short, are people that are well known to the community? And if they are, have some of the names been forwarded to the government?
Well, it is possible. You know, recruitment of some of the community members is something possible. Remember, we have a very long, porous border with Somalia, ranging about 700 to 800 kilometers. And it's quite porous. I laud the government's effort to boost and beef up security in the region. I'm sure, I understand there are many camps that have come up the last few months, and the government has made efforts to beef up security in the area generally. The Interior CS has been there many times. Last to be there was CS Duale of Defense, and we laud the great job our security agencies are doing in the area. So recruitment of some of the community members is possible, but when we robustly engage the community and build the trust between the security agencies and the community is built, the security agencies win the hearts and minds of the community members, then intelligence collections become much easier.
Right.
So we encourage intelligence collection through local leaders, elders, members of the community, so that they are able to report some of the animals that are recruited. But we can't rule out because of many factors that are there.
All right. And one of the issues that has been a thorn in the flesh for not only the county but also the national government is that issue of unemployment that has driven so many young people to join terror groups or to engage in insecurity activities. So the question is, what is the county government, specifically of Wajir, doing to ensure that young people are well engaged?
You'll be surprised, most of our staff are below 35. More than 80% of our employees in the county are youth below 35 of age. And the county has now about more than close to 5,000 staff in its payroll, close to thereabout. Most of whom are youth, but you see the demand is still huge because of the many graduates who are churned out by our colleges and universities every year. And there is no entrenched private sector, particularly in Wajir County, and largely the country, the employment rates, the unemployment rates are quite high. So it is one of the reasons why it is easier for these elements, militant elements, to entrench and enlist some of these youth among their ranks and file. But the county government is doing anything, everything under the sun, within its purview, budget permitting, to make sure that our youth are unemployed. Not only in the formal sector, but also in the agriculture sector, in the informal sector, in many other ways we can, because now we are not just employing people in the county payroll. We are trying to see what we can do to encourage farming
Right.
as a
Right.
county government policy.
All right, and as we bring this conversation to an end, DG, so we've talked about how you're engaging the young people so as not to get into sort of like insecurity activities. But another major concern is within the teaching sector, where so many teachers have always asked for, being removed, redeployed to other areas away from the North Rift region. How is this teaching sector like in terms of the teacher gap, and are you working with the national government through the TSC to ensure that learning remains the same, no child loses quality education?
We are not leaving anything to chance, and experiences in 2013-17 have really given us a lot to learn from. The leadership of TSC, the then leadership of TSC, I think Mrs. Macharia did not help matters as well. So Northern Kenya was more or less a recruitment ground for teachers. They're posted there, and the first issue or incident of insecurity, they're there back to the rest of the country. So we are not taking any chances. We are trying to do what we can as a county government to establish a local pool of teachers. We will establish a teaching college pretty soon in Wajir County. We are also trying to enlist many students to be enrolled in teaching fraternity and teaching sector. I remember there was also a policy decision by the former CS Amina, particularly an affirmative action for Northern Kenya, allowing lower grades to be admitted from Northern Kenya, but that was also rubbished and rubbed aside. I hope the current administration will be able to look into that. I believe the task force that was established by President Ruto will also look into that and bring back that affirmative action.
Right.
So these are some of the areas we are trying to see, but we are not leaving anything to chance.
All right. I like the fact that you're saying that Wajir County is not leaving anything to chance. Thank you so much. The Deputy Governor of Wajir County, Hammed Mohamed, talking to us about securing the North Rift region, what the county governments within that region are doing together with the government. Bringing us to the end of Weekend Prime. Asante sana for watching our view. My name is Brenda Zedaradido, and thanks to the men and the women behind the scene who made this bulletin a success, including a sign language interpreter, Meresha Owiti. Good night. Enjoy the rest of your viewing.